Hello everyone, PS Enough here with another video. Today we're going to take about Vainglory, and we're going to talk about Vainglory on the top lane specifically. Sebss just posted a tweet 3 hours ago talking about the meta on Vainglory update 4.0, that he checked out some VG Pro stats and also what the pro players are playing on the different regions, and he came up with this small map showing what are the top picks for each single position. I'm a top laner myself, so I'm going to focus this video on the top lane. I might do a few videos for the other positions, but right now I'm just focused on the top lane. So according to him, the best top lane picks right now are Grump, Lance, Raze, Alpha, and Moline. That sounds okay. I have a few more to add to the list, and let's go through each of the players and what are, or the heroes, and what are the pros and cons of each one of them. Also, there's this video from Excoundrel where he tried to do like a prediction of what would be the top carries on the top. You can see Lance is also there, Grump is also there, but then he had it Lorelei, Sanfeng, Adagio, Reza, Grace, and then Jewel sneaking up there, and then a few CP carries there, and the list goes on. But let's get into which ones I think are the best right now. So first and foremost, let's talk about Grumpjaw. Grumpjaw is in a very good position. He has that inherent tankiness ability of his perk, where he has that extra armor. If he goes up against something like, you can see it here, a Jewel or a Baptiste, is gonna have some problems. Actually, I think the main problem he has on the top is if he's facing a Kinetic, because the Kinetic gives extra hits with those little ticks that has from her perk. So that's one of the worst team-ups that you can have on the top. But Grump does pretty much okay against any common weapon or CP. Usually, if you're in the top lane, you're gonna be paired up against a weapon carry. So usually it's either Ringo, Gwen, maybe Baron, maybe Kinetic. Those are the usual ones. Then you might get a few off-meta ones, but those are the typical ones that you have. And these Grumpjaw can gank very well. You just need to be careful not to be surprised yourself on the jungle. You can use your A ability to reach forward and be close. And when you unlock your ultimate, you can just eat your opponent, dash back to your turret, put him under the turret, and he gets some extra aggro from the turret itself. Now builds for Grumpjaw. The current meta is very much around Stormcrown. I personally don't like Stormcrown meta that much. It might be viable with Grumpjaw, so it's up to you. Poison Shiv is interesting to apply both mortal wounds and also the attack speed that you want on the Grumpjaw. I typically go for Spell Sword and then Poison Shiv and then some defense itemizations. You could also go for Tension Bow or Tension Bow and Aftershock to have both cooldown reduction and that burst damage when you dive into the enemy composition. Grumpjaw works well on the early game and mid game. On the late game, he falls out a little bit because on those 5 versus 5 team fights, he's gonna suffer a lot. Everyone's gonna target on him, and his stacks for sustaining himself are gonna go down very fast, and he's just gonna die off very quickly, same as any other hero. So you need to be very careful on your late game. Either build additional defense to make sure to sustain that heavy targeting, or don't, and just play safe around the place. It depends on the rest of your teammates' compositions, of course. So yeah, but you have your A ability, they apply some slows. You have your ultimate that can remove an opponent from the team fight. So it's good to single out targets, but it's more of a utility late game hero than an actual carry, which is usually the role for the top tier. You can also go for an Atlas Pauldrum or a Crucible, something that will help the team. Even Rook's Decree or the first one, this one, what's it called? The thing that I don't remember the name, but it's right here. Something Flux, I think. It's also pretty decent on Grumpjaw. It's here on most frequent build. So yeah, Grumpjaw pretty good on the top right now. Another hero that is very good on the top right now is Lance. People use him a lot also as a support carry or also in the jungle. Usually the best build if you're on the top lane is to go for Serpent's Mask and then Tension Bow. You get the sustain from the Serpent's Mask, and you get that burst piercing damage that you want to have with the Tension Bow. Works pretty good. Then do some defensive itemizations. You can also go for even harder hitting stuff, maybe a Sorrow Blade or a Spell Sword to have additional cooldown. Some people like to have a Storm Crown built into it as well because it gives additional cooldown and gives also a perk that the first hit gives a lot of damage. So the perk of the Storm Crown and the perk of the Tension Bow at the same time give a very hard hitting first hit. So it's very good for early engages or first time engages. And you can really oppress your opponent on the top lane. You can oppress a Baron very easily. You just land an Impale and he's already behind on the 1-to-1 fight. You can oppress Ringo. You can oppress Gwen. And then when you have your ultimate unlocked, you can use the roll to do some extra poke damage. So it's even better. So a very skilled Lance player can do a lot of damage on the top lane. I highly recommend you check him out. It's a little bit hard to farm with Lance because you need to account for the slow hitting of his big Lance. But once you get used to it, it's acceptable and you get used to it rather quickly. Another big hero that's very popular on the top is Reza. I personally don't like to play Reza. I think he's too squishy. But a lot of people like playing him. He's a good mage assassin that you can use for both the early game and the late game. Is especially good for diving into squishy heroes, which usually is the weapon counterpart that you will have. So a Gwen, a Ringo, a Baron will suffer a lot against Reza, and that's why people like him so much. You can see different builds for him. You can do Aftershock Spellfire, you can do Aftershock Storm Crown, maybe Broken Myth if you feel like you're not doing enough damage. It really depends if you like to hit and run or if you like to just dive in completely. Depends on your opponent, of course, as well, and the rest of your team. Another popular pick on the top right now is Yates. It also doubles as a support role, similar to Lance, and people like him for his tankiness. You can do a lot of good things with Yates, especially I usually build Spell Sword. You can also build Storm Crown on him. And then defense itemizations, maybe Poison Shiv if you feel inclined to apply Mortal Wounds. You need to be careful not to get too squishy when you do weapon build on Yates. You can also try the similar build from Lance. The Serpent's Mask and Tension Bow also should work well on Yates. I used to try also Tension Bow and Aftershock, also works nice. You have extra cooldown, you give some extra hits whenever you land your skills. So it's very interesting. The coolest part about Yates is his ultimate, of course. Well, his A and B are pretty cool as well. You can pull someone in, so if you have good lane placement, you can sneak an extra hit on your target enemy, and if he's a squishy carry, that might make the difference, and then stun him up with your B. So you need a good combo of that A and B ability to really dominate the early game. And then you can use your ultimate once it unlocks to gank people on the other side of the map. So if you see that your lane is decently pushed, you see someone very low on the other side of the map, just ultimate your way there, finish him off, and then recall home, and then go back to your lane. And you can get some very easy extra kills there that can make a significant difference, both for you and helping your teammates on the other lanes. So that's the main use for Yates. It's a mid-game kind of hero. On late game, it kind of dies out. You can still use your A to pull someone in, but you probably want to have more defensive itemization so you can help your teammates on fight. I usually go for Rook's Decree because it gives you both the tankiness and some extra support to your teammates, but you can do something else. You can do the Flux thing that I always forget the name. This one right here. You can do Crucible. You can do Atlas Pauldrum if you're usually in the middle of the team fight. It depends on the situation. And Boots. You definitely need War Threads to help your team. Yates seems a bit slower than other heroes somehow. Another hero that's very popular on the top is Jewel, just because she's so broken right now, especially her CP path. You can play her also as weapon, although she got a bit nerfed on weapon, so she doesn't do as much damage. But her her perk, if you don't know, is to have front shield, and she also has a very strong B ability, which she lays down a strike with her blade, and it's empowered on both weapon and crystal. So you can give some extra hits with that, and really helps on the team fight, especially if you keep charging in. Like once you commit to the fight, you shouldn't turn your back, because when Jewel turns her back on the enemy, that's when she's most vulnerable. So go forward, go forward. You need to know that you can kill your opponent. No fear, just fight. You see here the typical builds for her. People usually do Spellfire and Frostburn. Some people like Shadowglass better. You can put a Clockwork if you want your ultimate and your B ability available more often. Or you can just focus on doing pure damage. I would advise some defense itemization. Slumbering Husk seems a decent trade-off. So this would be one of the better things here. I usually don't go for Frostburn. People like Frostburn on Jewel because it's when you use your ultimate, you keep the enemies inside the big red button. So you keep giving more damage to those people. And if you get like two enemy heroes in the lane of your big red button, you have a very big advantage for the team fight. I usually like to do Spellfire and then Broken Myth and then either Shatterglass or even Aftershock. I sometimes do Aftershock to have extra cooldown without doing a full Clockwork. So it depends a lot on what your opponent team is doing or what the rest of your team is doing. So you need to be careful with that. Another pick that people are saying is very strong on the top. I personally don't like playing her very much is Moline. She's a mage hero as well. Very good against weapon carries. She has so much stuff on her kit to give her extra shield, dodging abilities, stuns. So she has a lot of things on her kit. You need to be a very good skilled player with Moline to make full use of her. But it's a nice, safe option to be on top if you're used to playing her typically in the mid or in the jungle. Another pick that people are saying is working very well right now is Alpha. I haven't been playing Alpha in the lane that much. Both the weapon build and the CP build are viable on Alpha. I don't know why it only shows this one here. I think the site is still a bit updating or something. But usually you see Stormcrown Aftershock if you're CP build. And you can also do, I think the typical build for her in weapon was Serpent's Mask, Breaking Point, and then either Sorrow Blade or Bone Saw. I don't know what her best build right now could be. I haven't really tested with the new update, but if you guys have any suggestions for that, please let me know on the comments below. But people have been saying that Alpha is pretty good on the top, so you should definitely check it out. Another hero that I usually play on the top, just for the amount of CC that he has, CC means crowd control if you don't know, is Tony. Tony has nice amount of kit. He can taunt, he can stun, he can blow the opponent teammates, the opponent players away. Very good in all parts of the game, pretty much. You need to know how to play his abilities on point and land his abilities, not overextend, because the worst thing you can do with a Tony is think that your shield will win you the team fight, and then suddenly you're 1 versus 2 and you just lost by default. But yeah, you can do a lot of interesting builds with Tony. Usually I do Spell Sword because you want extra cooldown to have extra abilities. Some people do Spell Sword and then just crit damage. Some people go for the Tension Bow. I even seen some people do Spell Sword and Aftershock. That also sort of works. I haven't tried them with a Stormcrown meta yet, but it should probably work okay, especially if you also want to do a few jungle invades while you're doing the top lane. And yeah, after that, try to do some defensive itemizations that helps the rest of your team. the flux thingy that I don't know the name and doesn't show up on the tooltip by reasons that I don't know, but I will bother VG Pro guys about it. And maybe Crucible, maybe Atlas Pauldrum, because you probably will be in the middle of the team fight when you're stunning someone. A lot of possibilities that you can do with him. Also, you should pay attention to some combos that you can do with Tony, like doing the taunt and then the bada boom, or synergy with the other players, like with other heroes, like Arden, for example. If someone lands the ultimate of Arden somewhere, you can use the bada boom to throw people against that thing, doing a little additional damage, but at the same time stun them up even further. So a lot of things you can do with Tony, and he's a very fun hero to play. So yeah, these are the top picks that I would select for the top lane right now. Let me know what you think on the comments below, if you agree, if you disagree, if you have other picks that you would usually like. I also try a few ones now and again. I like to play Ozo on the top. I like to play Batiste on the top. It really depends how you like the hero, and above all, you need to be safe. On the top lane, the most important thing is to play safe, make sure you have vision, don't overextend, because when you think you're about to kill the enemy hero, it's usually a bait, and the jungler is lurking there, waiting to finish you off. So unless you can have some good in synergy with your own jungler to come help you at crucial times and help you get the extra ganks, you should really be careful on the top lane. It's still pretty much a 1 versus 2 lane, despite all the changes that they did to the jungle meta. So stay safe, play defensively, and wait for the late game, or at least for your level 6. Usually level 6 is a good turning point when you start to do more rotations around the map and you are not as stuck in the top lane, let's call it that. So yeah, hope this video was useful. See you next time. Bye bye everyone. Take care.